A broken-down truck, two little girls shivering in a blizzard,
Somebody please
their mother
help.
gone for help that never
We're so
came.
cold.
The temperature is dropping fast, 17 degrees below zero, and then a shadow appears through the white wall of snow. A man in winter camouflage with a massive German shepherd at his side. He rescues them and says 3 words that will change everything. Come with me. The girls don't know it yet, but the quiet stranger who just found them isn't just a good Samaritan. He's ex-Delta Force. And the reason their mother hasn't come back isn't because she got lost. It's because someone doesn't want her coming back at all. Before we begin, please tell us wherever in the world you're watching from. And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe for more. The Brooks Range in Alaska doesn't forgive mistakes. It's one of the most isolated mountain ranges in North America. Miles of frozen wilderness where cell service is a myth and the nearest town is a full day's drive. This is where Sarah Chen's truck died on a February afternoon when the sky turned the color of steel. She had her 2 daughters with her, Emma, age 7, Lily, age 5. They were driving back from visiting Sarah's sister in Fairbanks, a trip they made twice a year, the same route every time. But this time, something was different. This time, someone had made sure that truck wouldn't make it home, and Sarah, a single mother who worked double shifts as a nurse to give her girls a better life, had no idea that saying yes to one powerful man's advances 6 months ago and then saying no would lead to this. To her truck broken down in a whiteout, to her walking 5 miles in a blizzard looking for help, to her daughters alone and freezing, to a man named Garrett Stone finding them just in time. But here's the thing, Garrett didn't just stumble upon them by accident, and the storm that's raging outside is nothing compared to the war that's about to begin. Garrett Stone had been dead for 3 years. At least that's what most people believed. The man who came back from that final mission in Syria wasn't the same man who left. The Pentagon called it a successful operation. 12 hostages rescued, 0 American casualties. They gave him a medal he never wore and a handshake from a general whose name he forgot the moment he walked out of that office. But successful didn't mean clean. It didn't mean the things you saw stopped playing on repeat every time you closed your eyes. It didn't mean you could sit in a restaurant without mapping every exit. It didn't mean the sound of a car backfiring didn't send you flat against the nearest wall. So Garrett did what he had to do. He disappeared. He bought 240 acres in the Brooks Range with the money he'd saved over 15 years of service. Money he never spent because he was always deployed, always moving, always hunting or being hunted. The land came with an old trapper's cabin that he spent 8 months rebuilding with his own hands. No contractors, no help, just him and the silence and the work that kept his hands busy and his mind from wandering into dark places. And Kodiak. The German shepherd had been his partner for the last 4 years of his military service. Military working dogs usually stay in service or get adopted by their handlers if they retire, but Kodiak had taken shrapnel in that final Syria mission, same explosion that killed the insurgent who'd been holding a gun to a crying child's head. The dog survived, saved Garrett's life in the process, by alerting to a secondary IED that would have turned him into pink mist. But the injury meant early retirement, so when Garrett disappeared into the Alaskan wilderness, Kodiak came with him. They'd saved each other's lives more times than either could count. Seemed fitting they'd figure out what came next together. The cabin sat in a valley, surrounded by peaks that scraped the sky. Nearest neighbor was 43 miles south. Nearest town was 87 miles northeast. In summer, you could make the drive in about 6 hours if the roads were dry. In winter, those roads became impassable death traps that even experienced locals avoided. Garrett liked it that way. He spent his days chopping wood, maintaining his equipment, hunting for food, and reading books he'd never had time for during his service. Hemingway, McCarthy, London. Men who understood that sometimes you had to go to the edge of the world to find the center of yourself. Kodiak spent his days doing what he'd always done, watching, listening, protecting. The dog was 8 years old now. His muzzle had gone gray, He moved a little slower on cold mornings, but his instincts were sharp as ever, maybe sharper. Without the chaos of war, he could focus on smaller things. The shift in wind direction that meant a storm was coming, the scent of a wolf pack passing through 3 days ago, the difference between the sound of snow falling and the sound of something moving through snow. It was Kodiak who heard it first, February 17th, 4:37 in the afternoon. Garrett was inside splitting kindling for the fire when Kodiak's head snapped up from where he'd been dozing near the wood stove. The dog's ears went forward. Alert. Not aggressive. Something else. Concerned. Garrett stopped mid-swing. "What is it, boy?" Kodiak moved to the door, whined, looked back at Garrett. It was a specific sound, one Garrett had learned to interpret over years of working together. Not danger, not a threat, but something wrong, something that needed attention. Garrett set down the hatchet and grabbed his cold weather gear, heavy parka, insulated boots, gloves, thermal face mask. The temperature outside was 17 below zero. The sky had been getting darker all afternoon, grey clouds hanging low and heavy, the kind that meant serious snow was coming. He opened the door, and the wind hit him like a fist. Kodiak pushed past him, and immediately started moving east. Not running, moving with purpose. Garrett followed. They walked for 20 minutes. The wind picked up. Snow started falling. Not the gentle postcard kind, the horizontal blinding kind that turned the world into a white wall. Visibility dropped to maybe 30 feet. Then 20. Then 10. Garrett was about to call Kodiak back when the dog stopped. Barked once. Sharp. Urgent. And that's when Garrett saw it. A truck. An old Ford F-150. Dark blue. Pulled off to the side of the access road that ran through this section of wilderness. The road that technically wasn't supposed to be used in winter, but that people used anyway because it cut 2 hours off the drive to Fairbanks. The truck's hood was up. Snow was already accumulating on the engine block, which meant it had been there for a while. At least an hour, maybe more. Garrett approached carefully. His hand instinctively went to the Glock 19 he carried in a chest holster under his parka. Old habits. You didn't walk up to unknown situations without being ready. The truck was empty. Driver's door was closed but unlocked. He checked the cab, keys still in the ignition, purse on the passenger seat, phone in the cup holder. Dead. He pressed the power button. Nothing. Battery completely drained. But it was what he saw in the back seat that made his blood run cold. 2 child car seats, empty. Booster seats. 1 pink, 1 purple. Little girls based on the sizes. His mind went into operational mode. Processing, analyzing. 2 kids, woman's purse, phone dead, truck broken down in sub-zero temperatures. How long had they been here? Where were they? Kodiak barked again. He'd moved to the tree line, was pawing at something in the snow. Garrett moved over and saw the tracks. Small footprints, adult woman based on the size, boot prints, heading into the forest, away from the road. Wrong direction if she was looking for help. The road led back to civilization. The forest led to more wilderness, unless she didn't know that. Unless she was from out of town and panicked and just started walking. He pulled out his satellite phone. The only kind that worked out here. Dialed the emergency ranger station. It rang 4 times before someone picked up. Brooks Range Station, this is Hendricks. This is Garrett Stone. I'm on the eastern access road about 12 miles north of Junction Creek. Found an abandoned vehicle. Ford F-150. Alaska plates. David Paul, 7392. 2 child seats in back. Fresh tracks heading into the woods. Adult female. Possible exposure situation. There was a pause. How long ago? Based on snow accumulation, at least 90 minutes. Maybe 2 hours. Another pause. Longer this time. Stone. We've got a full whiteout advisory in effect. Can't get air support up. Ground units are responding to 3 other emergencies. I can get someone to you in maybe 4 hours. Maybe 6. 4 hours these people will be dead. I understand that. But I'm giving you reality. Garrett looked at the truck. At the empty car seats. at Kodiak standing in the trees waiting for direction. What about the kids? What about them? The car seats? Where are the children? He heard typing. Give me a second. More typing. Okay. We got a bolo that came in about 45 minutes ago. Sarah Chen, age 32. 2 daughters. Emma, age 7. Lily, age 5. Left Fairbanks this morning heading south. Was supposed to check in with her sister 2 hours ago. Didn't. Sister called it in. The mother walked into the woods. Question is, did she take the kids or leave them? Christ. Hendricks breathed. Okay. Listen. You're ex-military, right? I remember your file when you bought that property. Delta Force. Retired. Okay. I'm asking you to do something off the books here. I'm asking you to track that woman. Find her if you can. Find those kids if they're out there. I'll get units rolling, but you're the only asset in position right now. Garrett was already moving back to the truck. I'm on it. I'll radio when I have something. He cut the connection and looked at Kodiak. Find. It was the command they'd used hundreds of times in combat. Find the target, find the threat, find the objective. Kodiak's nose went to the ground, and he started moving. They followed the tracks into the forest. The woman had been stumbling, moving erratically, probably hypothermic already when she left the truck, probably panicking, making bad decisions because when your core temperature drops, your brain stops working right. You can't think clearly, can't problem solve, you just react, and she'd reacted by walking away from safety. They tracked her for 30 minutes. The snow was getting heavier, the tracks were filling in fast. Another 20 minutes, and they'd be gone completely. Then Kodiak stopped, changed direction. He wasn't following the adult tracks anymore. He was following something else. Garrett knelt and saw them. Smaller prints, child-sized, 2 sets, leading away from the truck in a different direction. She'd left them, or they'd wandered off while she was looking at the engine. Either way, 2 little girls were out here in 17 below zero in a blizzard. Find, Garrett said again. Kodiak moved faster now. The dog understood. This was a rescue. This was what he'd been trained for. What he'd done in places like Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria. Finding people. Saving people. The mission might have changed, but the purpose hadn't. 10 minutes later, Kodiak barked. Not his alert bark. His found something bark. Garrett pushed through a stand of black spruce and saw the truck. Not the Ford. A different truck. Much older. Looked like it had been abandoned here years ago. Rust showing through faded red paint. Tires flat. Windows broken. The kind of wreck hunters or rangers sometimes left out in the wilderness because it wasn't worth the cost of hauling it back. And huddled in the cab, pressed together under a torn sleeping bag they must have found in the wreck, were 2 little girls. They were conscious, shivering violently, skin pale, lips tinged blue, early-stage hypothermia. Maybe 20 minutes from moderate, another hour from severe. The older girl saw him first. Her eyes went wide. She pulled her sister closer, protective, terrified. Garrett stopped, kept his distance. Kodiak sat, also keeping distance. They both understood. Scared kids. Strange man. Scary dog. You didn't rush this. Hey, Garrett said softly. Calm. Steady. The voice he'd used with frightened civilians in war zones. My name's Garrett. This is Kodiak. We're here to help. The girl didn't respond. Just stared. Her sister was crying. Quiet sobs. The kind that said she didn't have the energy for loud anymore. I know you're scared, Garrett continued. I know you don't know me. But your mom sent people to find you. We've been looking for you. And we're going to get you somewhere warm. Okay? Where's Mommy? The younger one. Lily. Her voice was so small. She went to get help. She's trying to find you too. But right now, I need to get you warm. You're very cold. Do you know what hypothermia is? The older girl, Emma. She nodded slightly. Okay. So you understand this is serious. I have a cabin not far from here. It's warm, There's food, hot chocolate if you want it. But we need to go now. The storm's getting worse. Emma's eyes went to Kodiak. Is he safe? Safest creature you'll ever meet. He's a military working dog. Retired. He finds people who are lost. He's the one who found you. Lily sniffed. Can I pet him? If he comes over, yes. But right now, we need to move. Garrett took a step closer. The girls didn't flinch. Good sign. I'm going to carry you. Both of you. Is that okay? Emma looked at her sister. Then back at Garrett. You promise you're not bad? I promise. I'm going to give you my satellite phone. See this? He held it up. Once we get somewhere with better signal, you can call your mum, or your aunt, or the police, anyone you want. I'm not keeping you. I'm helping you. Understand? She studied his face. This kid was smart, evaluating, trying to decide if she could trust him. Finally, she nodded. Garrett moved forward and scooped up both girls. They weighed almost nothing. He wrapped them in the sleeping bag and tucked them inside his parka as much as he could. Skin-to-skin warmth. It's what you did for hypothermia victims. Kodiak. Home. The dog turned and started moving. Garrett followed. The girls were silent, shaking. Emma had her arms around Lily, still protecting her little sister even now. The walk back took 45 minutes. By the time they reached the cabin, both girls had stopped shivering, which was bad. It meant their bodies were shutting down, conserving heat, going into survival mode. Garrett kicked open the cabin door and went straight to the wood stove. He'd kept it burning hot. The temperature inside was probably 85 degrees. He laid the girls on the floor near the stove, not too close. You couldn't warm hypothermia victims too fast or you'd send them into shock. He stripped off their wet clothes, replaced them with dry thermal layers from his own supply. They were way too big, but that didn't matter. He wrapped them in wool blankets, then sleeping bags, then positioned them near the heat. Kodiak lay down next to them, his body adding warmth. The dog's instincts were perfect. He knew what was needed. Garrett heated water. Not boiling, warm. He added honey and a pinch of salt. Homemade electrolyte solution. He helped both girls drink, small sips. Their hands were shaking too much to hold the cups. For the next hour, he worked, checking their extremities for frostbite, massaging circulation back into fingers and toes, monitoring their core temperature with the medical thermometer he kept in his first aid kit, talking to them, keeping them conscious, telling them they were safe, that they were going to be okay. Emma's temperature came up first, 94.2, still hypothermic but moving in the right direction. Lily took longer. Her temp bottomed at 91.7, dangerous, but she was a fighter. By the time the sun set, she was at 93.8. They were going to make it. Garrett made soup, chicken and rice from his supply stock. Simple, easy to digest. The girls ate slowly. Their bodies were exhausted, but the color was coming back to their faces. "Where's Mummy?" Lily asked again. Her voice was stronger now. "I radioed for help. There are people looking for her right now. She's going to be okay." Emma looked at him. The truck broke. Mummy looked at the engine. She told us to wait, but she was gone a long time, and it got cold, so we got out to look for her. But we couldn't find her, or the truck. We got lost. Smart kids. They'd found shelter, found the sleeping bag, huddled together. It's why they were still alive. "You did the right thing," Garrett said. "Staying together. Finding shelter. That's what saved you." "Is Mummy in trouble?" Emma's eyes were worried. "With the police? Because she left us?" "No. She's not in trouble. She was trying to help you. Sometimes in emergencies, people make choices that feel right in the moment. She probably thought she could get to help faster without carrying you. She probably thought you'd be safer in the truck. What he didn't say was that Sarah Chen had made a critical mistake, a potentially fatal mistake. You never leave your kids in those conditions. Never. But he understood panic, understood hypothermia, understood that when your brain isn't working right, you can't make good decisions. The satellite phone crackled. Garrett grabbed it. Stone here. Hendricks. We found her. Sarah Chen. She's alive. Moderate hypothermia. Some frostbite. But stable. Medevac is taking her to Fairbanks Regional. Where are the kids? With me. Safe. Warming up. Minor hypothermia, but they're responding well. Jesus Christ, Stone. You found all three. The girls found themselves. They're smart kids. I just brought them in. Can you hold them until morning? Roads are completely closed. Nothing's moving. But we can get a ranger to you at first light. Garrett looked at the two girls. Emma was holding a cup of soup. Lily had fallen asleep against Kodiak. Yeah, we're good here. I'll radio Sarah. Let her know. She's been hysterical. Tell her they're safe. Tell her they're warm. And tell her they're brave as hell. He ended the call and looked at Emma. That was about your mom. She's okay. She's at a hospital. They're taking care of her. And tomorrow, a ranger is coming to bring you to her. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She's really okay? She's really okay. The little girl started crying. Not scared crying, relief crying. The kind that comes when the weight of responsibility finally lifts. She'd been holding herself together for her sister, being brave, being strong. Now she could let go. Garrett moved over and sat down next to her. Not touching, just present. You did good, Emma. You took care of your sister. You kept her alive. That takes courage. I was so scared, I know. But you didn't let fear stop you. That's what brave means. She looked up at him. Are you a soldier? Was. Not anymore. What do you do now? I live here. Chop wood. Read books. Try to figure out what comes next. Do you like it? Being alone? He glanced at Kodiak. I'm not alone. And yeah, most days, I like it. Don't you miss people? It was a kid's question. Simple. Direct. But it hit harder than she could know. Sometimes. But people are complicated. Out here, things are simple. The fire keeps you warm, or it doesn't. The wood is dry, or it isn't. There's no pretending, no politics, just reality. She thought about that. My teacher says reality is different for everyone. Your teacher's smart. But there's different kinds of reality. The reality of people and feelings and opinions. That's complicated. But the reality of cold and heat and survival, that's simple. That's the same for everyone. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Thank you for finding us. Kodiak found you. I just followed. As if on cue, the dog's tail thumped against the floor. Lily stirred but didn't wake. Her small hand was buried in his fur. The night stretched on. Garrett kept the fire burning, kept watch. The girls slept. Really slept. The kind of deep sleep that comes after surviving something that should have killed you. Their bodies were exhausted. Their minds were exhausted. But they were safe. They were warm. And for tonight, that was enough. Garrett sat in his chair near the window, watching the snow fall, thinking about the question Emma had asked. Don't you miss people? Yeah. Sometimes he did. He missed the brotherhood of his unit. Missed having a mission. Missed the clarity of purpose that came with serving something bigger than yourself. But he didn't miss the politics. Didn't miss the bureaucracy. Didn't miss watching good men die because someone in an office 1,000 miles away made a decision that sounded good on paper but turned to shit in reality. Out here, he didn't have to answer to anyone. Didn't have to justify his choices. Didn't have to smile and nod while someone who'd never been in combat told him how to do his job. But finding those girls today, bringing them back, watching them sleep safe and warm, that felt like something, like purpose. Like maybe there was still a mission out here in the silence. Maybe it just looked different than it used to. Kodiak padded over and rested his head on Garrett's knee. The dog's eyes were warm, understanding. He'd had a mission today, too, and he'd completed it with the same skill and dedication he'd shown in a dozen war zones. Good boy, Garrett whispered, scratching behind the dog's ears. You did real good today. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, 2 little girls slept, and for the first time in 3 years, Garrett Stone felt like maybe he wasn't quite as dead as he'd thought. Maybe there was still something worth saving in this world. Maybe even himself. The ranger arrived at dawn. His name was Cooper, mid-40s, weathered face, the kind of man who'd spent his whole life in these mountains and knew every trail, every shelter, every danger zone by heart. He pulled up on a snowmobile, the engine's whine cutting through the early morning quiet. Garrett met him on the porch. The girls were still inside, eating breakfast. Oatmeal with brown sugar and dried berries. Kodiak was with them, accepting small pieces of bacon. Emma kept sneaking him under the table. "Stone," Cooper said, pulling off his helmet. "Heard you had an interesting night." "You could say that." "Girls okay?" "Physically, yeah. Emotionally, that's going to take some time." Cooper nodded. "Their mother's stable. Asking about them every 5 minutes. Hospital wants to keep her another day for observation, but she's going to make a full recovery." "Good. There's something else, though." Cooper's expression changed. Got serious. "We found her about 3 miles from where you found the truck. She was at the old Mackenzie hunting lodge. You know it?" Garrett knew it. Private property. Luxury setup some rich guy from Anchorage had built 10 years ago. Used it maybe twice a year. Rest of the time it sat empty. "Yeah, I know it." She wasn't alone when we got there. Something cold settled in Garrett's gut. "Explain." "Guy named Marcus Brennan was there. Oil executive. Big money. He claimed he found her wandering and brought her to the lodge to warm up. Called it a rescue. But Sarah Chen told a different story once we got her away from him. Said Brennan's been stalking her for 6 months. Started after she treated him at the hospital where she works. He asked her out. She said no. He didn't take it well. Started showing up at her work, at her home. Sending gifts, making comments about how her daughters needed a father figure." Garrett's hands clenched. "She report it?" 3 times. But Brennan's connected. Donated a new wing to the hospital. Sits on the board. Has the police chief's personal cell number. Every report got buried. Every complaint got dismissed as a misunderstanding. "And the truck?" Cooper's face darkened. "Mechanic looked at it this morning. Fuel line was cut. Clean slice. Professional. Made to look like wear and tear, but it wasn't. Someone sabotaged that vehicle." The pieces were clicking together in Garrett's mind. The wrong direction Sarah had walked. Not toward help. Toward the lodge. Because she knew it was there. Because someone had told her it was there. He set this up. "That's what we're thinking. Cut the fuel line. Knew she'd break down on that stretch of road. Probably been watching her movements. Knew when she'd be coming back from Fairbanks. The storm was just luck. Or maybe he'd been waiting for weather like this. Where is he now? Still at the lodge. We didn't have probable cause to bring him in. He's got expensive lawyers. The kind that make problems for working guys like me. State police want to talk to Sarah again when she's more coherent. Build a case before they move." Garrett stared out at the snow-covered landscape. His jaw was tight. "So he gets to sit in his warm luxury lodge drinking scotch while 2 little girls almost froze to death because of what he did. I don't like it either. But that's how it works when you've got money. Not how it should work." Cooper studied him. "You thinking about doing something stupid, Stone?" "I'm thinking about talking to him. That's what I was afraid of." Cooper sighed. "Look, I get it. I saw those girls. I know what almost happened. But you go after Brennan. You're giving him ammunition. Guy like that, he'll have you arrested for harassment. Or worse. I'm not going to hurt him. I'm just going to have a conversation. Stone, the girls are ready to go. Take them to their mother. I'll be fine." Cooper looked like he wanted to argue. But something in Garrett's expression stopped him. Maybe he saw something he recognized. The look of a man who'd made a decision and wasn't going to be talked out of it. "If you end up in jail, I didn't have this conversation." "What conversation?" Cooper almost smiled. Then he went inside to collect the girls. Emma and Lily were bundled in fresh, dry clothes. Too big for them, but warm. Emma had Garrett's satellite phone clutched in her hand. She'd called her mother from it an hour ago, cried and talked and cried some more. She looked up at Garrett as Cooper prepared to take them. "Are we going to see you again? Maybe. If you want to." "I want to." She stepped forward and hugged him. Quick, fierce. Then stepped back, looking embarrassed. Lily was less hesitant. She wrapped her arms around his leg and squeezed. "Thank you for saving us. You girls saved yourselves. I just gave you a warm place to finish the job." Lily moved to Kodiak, buried her face in his fur. "Bye, Kodiak. I love you." The dog's tail wagged. He licked her face, made her giggle, then they were gone, the snowmobile's engine fading into the distance. The cabin suddenly felt very empty, very quiet. Kodiak looked up at Garrett. "Waiting." "Yeah," Garrett said. "I know. Bad idea. But we're doing it anyway." He spent the next hour preparing, changed into clean clothes, black tactical pants, dark grey Henley, his old combat boots, not military gear but close enough. He strapped the Glock to his chest, added 2 spare magazines, grabbed his cold weather parka. He wasn't planning violence, but he believed in being prepared. The Mackenzie Lodge was 40 minutes away by snowmobile. Garrett took his own machine, a Arctic Cat he'd bought used and rebuilt. Kodiak rode in the custom sidecar he'd welded together. The dog loved it. Wind in his face, speed and purpose. They arrived just after 10 in the morning. The lodge was impressive. 2-story log construction with massive windows overlooking a frozen lake, smoke rising from the stone chimney. 2 vehicles parked outside, a Range Rover and a Jeep Wrangler, both expensive, both pristine despite the conditions. Garrett killed the engine and sat for a moment, observing, looking for security cameras, motion sensors, any indication this was more than just a rich man's getaway. He saw 3 cameras, 2 on the corners, 1 over the front door, professional installation, not the cheap stuff you bought at a hardware store. He approached the door, knocked, firm, authoritative, the knock of someone who expected to be answered. It took 30 seconds. Then the door opened. The man standing there was mid-40s, tall, fit in the way that came from expensive personal trainers and boutique gyms, wearing designer winter casual, flannel that probably cost more than Garrett's entire wardrobe. His hair was perfect. His skin was tan despite it being February in Alaska. Probably had a vacation home in Cabo. This was Marcus Brennan. "Can I help you?" His voice was smooth, confident, the voice of a man who'd never been told no without finding a way around it. "I'm looking for the man who cut Sarah Chen's fuel line and left her and her daughters to die in a blizzard." Brennan's expression didn't change, didn't even flicker. "I'm sorry. Who are you?" "The man who found those little girls 20 minutes from freezing to death." Now something moved behind Brennan's eyes. Calculation, assessment. "I think you're confused. I rescued Sarah, brought her here, kept her safe until Rangers arrived. If anything, you should be thanking me." "Is that the story you're going with?" "It's not a story. It's what happened." Brennan leaned against the doorframe, casual, relaxed. "But I'm guessing you didn't snowmobile all the way out here to thank me. So why don't you tell me what you really want?" "I want you to confess." Brennan laughed. Actually laughed. "Confess to what? Helping someone? Being a good Samaritan?" "Confess to sabotaging her vehicle, to stalking her, to orchestrating a situation where she'd be isolated and dependent on you. That's a creative theory. You have any proof?" "Mechanic found the cut fuel line. Wear and tear. Happens all the time in these conditions. Sarah filed 3 harassment complaints against you. Misunderstandings, all resolved. Her hospital supervisor can confirm that." "The supervisor you donated $2 million to?" Brennan's smile widened. "I donate to many worthy causes. I believe in supporting my community. You believe in buying your way out of consequences. I believe in being generous. If people misinterpret that as something else, that's their problem, not mine." He straightened. "Look, I don't know who you are or why you care, but Sarah and I have a complicated relationship. She's been sending mixed signals for months. saying no but making eye contact, declining dates but wearing nice perfume when she knows I'll be at the hospital. Women do that. They test you. They want you to pursue them. To prove you're serious. Garrett's voice dropped, got colder. She said no. That's not a mixed signal. That's a complete sentence. You clearly don't understand women. I understand when someone's being stalked by a predator who can't handle rejection. Brennan's smile vanished. Be very careful with your words. I have lawyers who specialize in defamation. I have a satellite phone that specializes in calling state police. And tell them what? That you have a theory? That you don't like me? Brennan stepped fully into the doorway now. Here's how this works in the real world. I have money. I have connections. I have friends in very high places. You're what, some hermit living in the woods? Some ex-military burnout who couldn't handle civilization? You think anyone's going to believe you over me? The mechanic's report will. The mechanic works for a company I have contracts with. His report will say whatever I need it to say. The ranger's testimony. Ranger Cooper, good guy, salt of the earth, also applying for a promotion that requires approval from the forestry board I sit on. Brennan's eyes were cold now. Dead. You're out of your depth here. You don't know how things work. You don't know who you're dealing with. I know exactly who I'm dealing with. A coward who hurts women and children because he can't handle being told no. And what are you going to do about it? Brennan spread his hands. Hit me? Threaten me? I've got security cameras recording this entire conversation. You so much as touch me, and you'll be in prison before sunset. Then who's going to protect those little girls? Who's going to make sure I don't visit Sarah at the hospital? Who's going to stop me from being the concerned friend offering support to a single mother who had such a traumatic experience? Garrett stood very still. His hands were relaxed at his sides. His breathing was steady. But inside, everything was coiled. Ready. He'd faced insurgents, terrorists, men who'd committed atrocities that would make Brennan look like an amateur, and he'd dealt with them according to the rules of engagement in war zones. But this wasn't a war zone. This was American soil. This was civilization with its laws and its lawyers and its cameras, and Brennan knew it. Knew he was untouchable. Knew that money and connections built a wall that men like Garrett couldn't breach. You're right, Garrett said finally. I can't touch you. Not legally. Smart man. But here's what I can do. I can make sure everyone knows what you are. I can make sure Sarah's story gets told. I can make sure every newspaper, every news station, every social media platform hears about Marcus Brennan, the oil executive who stalked a nurse and sabotaged her car. My lawyers will bury you in lawsuits. I don't have anything to take. No house, no savings, nothing but a cabin on land that's protected by homestead laws. You can sue me into next century and get nothing. Brennan's jaw tightened. You're making a mistake. No, you made the mistake. You assumed you could hurt those girls and walk away. You assumed no one would care. You were wrong. Garrett turned to leave. He'd said what he came to say, done what he could. It wasn't enough. Brennan would probably walk, would probably continue stalking Sarah, would probably face zero real consequences, but at least he knew someone was watching. He was halfway to his snowmobile when Brennan's voice called out, "Hey, Burnout." Garrett stopped, didn't turn around. I'm going to make you a promise, Brennan said. I'm going to visit Sarah tomorrow. At the hospital. I'm going to bring flowers. I'm going to express my concern. I'm going to offer to help with anything she needs. And she's going to accept. Because I'm charming. Because I'm persistent. Because that's what women like her need. A strong man who doesn't give up. Now Garrett turned. Slowly. Brennan was smiling again. And if you try to interfere, if you try to play hero, I'm going to make sure those little girls end up in foster care. I'm going to make sure Sarah loses custody. I know people in social services. I know judges. I can make her life a bureaucratic nightmare. Unless she accepts my help. Unless she lets me into her life. You're threatening children. I'm stating facts. The world runs on leverage. I have it. You don't. Simple as that. Something shifted in Garrett's expression. Something cold and final. You know what I learned in Delta Force? I'm sure you're about to tell me. I learned that some problems can't be solved with laws. Some people can't be reached with words. Some threats can't be neutralized with paperwork. Is that supposed to scare me? It's supposed to inform you. You think you're untouchable because you have money and lawyers. But there are men in this world who don't care about lawyers. Men who've operated in places where the only law is survival. Men who know how to make problems disappear without leaving evidence. Brennan's smile faltered. Just slightly. Are you threatening me? I'm informing you. The same way you informed me. Facts. Realities. How the world works. Garrett took a step closer. You go near Sarah or those girls again, and you're going to learn that money doesn't mean anything in the middle of the Alaskan wilderness, that cameras don't help when there's no one around to watch the footage, that all your connections and all your lawyers can't find a man who doesn't want to be found. I'll have you arrested. For what? Having a conversation? Making observations about the dangers of living in isolated areas? Garrett's voice was flat, empty. I haven't threatened you. I've just shared information. Isn't that what you did? For the first time, Brennan looked uncertain. He'd been in control this entire time, had been playing a game he knew he'd win, but now he was looking at someone who didn't care about the rules. Someone who'd lived outside the rules for so long that they'd become meaningless. You're insane, Brennan said. No. I'm just done pretending that laws protect people when they clearly don't. You proved that. You showed me that men like you operate above justice, so maybe it's time men like me operated outside it. Garrett turned and walked to his snowmobile. Kodiak was waiting, watching Brennan with the focused intensity of a dog who sensed threat. As Garrett started the engine, he saw movement from inside the lodge. 2 men, big, probably security, probably armed. They moved to flank Brennan. Good. Let them come. Let Brennan feel like he needed protection. The ride back to the cabin was fast. Furious. Garrett pushed the snowmobile harder than he should have, taking turns too sharp, jumping drifts that could have flipped him. He was angry. At Brennan, at the system, at himself for not being able to do more. Back at the cabin, he paced. Kodiak watched him, concerned. The dog could sense his mood, could feel the tension radiating off him. Garrett's satellite phone rang. He answered without checking the number. This is Stone. Mr. Stone? This is Detective Sarah Chen's sister. My name is Linda Chen. Sarah gave me your number. Is she okay? Physically, yes, but she's terrified. She told me what Marcus Brennan did. She told me he's threatening to visit her, to push his way back into her life. I know. I talked to him. You what? I went to the lodge, confronted him. It didn't go well. There was a long pause. What did he say? Garrett told her. All of it. The threats, the leverage, the promises to make Sarah's life hell if she didn't accept his help. Linda was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was shaking. My sister is one of the strongest people I know. She raised 2 girls on her own, worked double shifts, never asked for help. But this man has broken her. She's talking about disappearing, taking the girls and running, starting over somewhere he can't find her. She shouldn't have to run, but what choice does she have? The system won't protect her. You said it yourself. He has money, connections. He'll win. Not if he disappears first. What? Garrett realized what he'd said, realized he'd crossed a line in his own mind. Nothing. Forget it. Mr. Stone, tell Sarah to stay at the hospital as long as she can. Tell her not to go home alone. Tell her to document everything, every conversation, every interaction. Build a record. For what? You said his lawyers will bury any case. For the truth. Sometimes that's all we have. He ended the call and sat down heavily in his chair, stared at the fire, watched the flames dance and consume the wood. Kodiak came over, rested his head on Garrett's knee. The dog's eyes were warm, understanding. I can't do it, Garrett said quietly. I can't. It's not who I am anymore. But the words felt hollow, because he'd thought them before. After Syria, after he'd walked away from the military, he'd told himself he was done with violence, done with solving problems with force. But problems like Marcus Brennan didn't get solved with words. They got solved with action. His phone rang again. Different number, he answered. Stone, it's Cooper. We have a situation. What kind of situation? Sarah Chen tried to leave the hospital an hour ago, against medical advice. She was hysterical, said she couldn't stay because Brennan knew where she was. Security had to restrain her. They sedated her. Garrett's grip on the phone tightened. Where is she now? Psychiatric hold. 72 hours. For her own safety. Cooper paused. Stone, this is bad. If she's deemed unstable, if there's a psych evaluation that says she's a danger to herself, Brennan could use that, could build a case that she's unfit, that the girls need protection. Protection from him. That's not how he'll frame it. He'll make it look like he's the concerned party, the stable adult, offering help. Garrett stood, walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the snow in shades of orange and red. Beautiful, peaceful. He thought about Emma, about Lily, about their small hands and their brave faces, about how they'd survived something that should have killed them, about how they deserved better than to live in fear. He thought about Sarah, about a woman who'd said no and was being punished for it, about a mother who'd done everything right and was losing anyway. He thought about Marcus Brennan, about his smile, about his threats, about his absolute certainty that he was untouchable, and Garrett made a decision. Cooper, he said, I need you to do something for me. What? I need you to not ask questions for the next 48 hours. Can you do that? Stone, what are you planning? Nothing illegal, nothing that will come back on you. But I need you to trust me. Cooper was silent for a long moment. Those girls were almost dead when you found them. I know. And now they're safe because of you. I know. Don't make me regret this trust. I won't. Garrett ended the call. He looked at Kodiak. Last mission, boy. One more time. The dog stood. Ready. Waiting. Because some problems couldn't be solved with laws. Some people couldn't be reached with words. And some threats had to be neutralized before they could hurt anyone else. Marcus Brennan thought he was untouchable, thought his money and his lawyers made him safe. He was about to learn he was wrong. Garrett spent the rest of that evening planning, not like a vigilante, like an operator. He'd learned a long time ago that success came from intelligence, preparation, and patience. Rush in angry and you make mistakes. Mistakes got people killed. He pulled out his laptop, old but functional. Satellite internet was slow, but it worked. He started digging into Marcus Brennan's life. The man had an impressive digital footprint, LinkedIn profile highlighting his rise through the oil industry, Instagram showing luxury vacations, expensive dinners, charity galas, Facebook full of carefully curated images of a successful bachelor living his best life. But Garrett wasn't interested in the surface. He went deeper, used techniques he'd learned from intelligence specialists, searched public records, court filings, business registrations, property transfers, and he found something interesting. Brennan wasn't just stalking Sarah Chen. She was the fourth woman in 6 years to file harassment complaints against him. The first one, a paralegal in Anchorage, had dropped her complaint after Brennan's company suddenly awarded her firm a major contract. The second, a journalist, had been transferred to a different paper in a different state. The third, a state employee, had resigned and moved out of Alaska entirely. Each time, the complaints disappeared. Each time, Brennan walked away clean, but the pattern was there, clear as day for anyone willing to look. Garrett copied everything, screenshots, PDFs, links. He compiled it into a single folder. Then he encrypted it and uploaded it to 3 different secure cloud servers. Insurance. Next, he looked into Brennan's current situation. The Mackenzie Lodge was registered to a shell company, but utilities were in Brennan's name, so were the vehicles. The security system was provided by a company called Sentinel Solutions. High-end stuff, motion sensors, cameras, probably armed response if an alarm was triggered. Garrett pulled up satellite imagery of the area, studied the terrain, the approaches, the sight lines. He'd done this hundreds of times in hostile territory. This was just another target assessment. By midnight, he had a plan. Not to hurt Brennan, not to threaten him, but to gather evidence, real evidence, the kind that lawyers couldn't make disappear. Because here's what Garrett understood about men like Brennan. They got sloppy when they felt safe. They kept records they shouldn't keep. Photos, videos, trophies of their conquests. And those records would be in that lodge. At 0300 hours, Garrett loaded his gear. Black tactical clothing, night vision optics, lockpick set, portable hard drive, camera. He wasn't bringing weapons. This wasn't a combat op. This was reconnaissance. Kodiak stayed at the cabin. Garrett needed to move fast and silent. The dog understood. He settled by the door, alert, waiting. The ride to the lodge took 30 minutes in the dark. Garrett cut the engine a quarter-mile out and approached on foot. The snow muffled his steps. The darkness was complete. No moon, just stars and the faint green glow of the aurora borealis dancing across the northern sky. He stopped 200 yards out, used thermal optics to scan the lodge. 2 heat signatures inside, both on the second floor, both stationary, sleeping, the security guards. Garrett circled the perimeter, identified the cameras, marked the motion sensors, planned his route. There was a blind spot on the east side where the roof overhang created a shadow the cameras didn't cover. The motion sensors were standard, passive infrared. They detected body heat. But if you moved slow enough, if you stayed in the cold long enough that your thermal signature dropped, you could fool them. He waited, sat in the snow, let the cold seep into his clothes, his skin, watched his breath until it was barely visible. 15 minutes. 20. His core temperature dropped, his fingers went numb, but his signature on thermal would be fading, blending with the background. Then he moved, slow, deliberate, each step calculated. He reached the east wall, pressed himself against the logs. The camera above him was fixed, not tracking. He stayed in its blind spot and moved along the wall to a window. It was locked, but it was an old lock, the kind that came standard on luxury lodges built for aesthetics, not security. Garrett pulled out a thin piece of metal, slid it between the frame and the sash, applied pressure. The lock popped. He eased the window open, inch by inch, no sudden movements, no sounds. Then he was through. Inside, the room was dark, empty, some kind of study, desk, bookshelves, leather furniture. He closed the window behind him, used a small penlight to orient himself, red filter so it wouldn't ruin his night vision. He moved through the lodge like a ghost. Years of experience made him nearly invisible. He avoided the floors where boards might creak, stayed close to walls where the structure was strongest, listened for any change in the breathing patterns of the men upstairs. Brennan's bedroom was on the main floor. Master suite. Garrett found it easily. The door was closed but not locked. He opened it slowly. The hinges were well oiled, silent. Brennan was asleep, alone, face slack, vulnerable. For a moment, Garrett stood there, watching, thinking how easy it would be. How many problems would disappear if this man simply stopped breathing? But that wasn't why he was here. He moved to the desk in the corner, opened drawers, careful not to disturb anything, looking for what he knew would be there. Because men like Brennan couldn't help themselves. They documented their conquests, kept souvenirs. Third drawer, a locked box, small, metal, the kind you bought at an office supply store. Garrett picked the lock in 12 seconds, opened it. Inside were USB drives, 6 of them, each labeled with a woman's first name and a date. Sarah's name was on one, dated 3 months ago. Garrett felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his emotions in check. He pulled out his portable hard drive, plugged in the first USB, started copying files. It took 8 minutes to copy all 6 drives. 8 minutes of standing in a sleeping predator's bedroom. 8 minutes of watching Brennan's chest rise and fall. 8 minutes of resisting the urge to wake him up and show him what real fear felt like. But Garrett was disciplined. Always had been. He finished copying, put the USBs back exactly as he'd found them, closed the box, locked it, closed the drawer. Then he saw the phone. Brennan's phone, sitting on the nightstand charging. Garrett picked it up. The screen was locked, but he'd come prepared. He pulled out a small device, a USB connector with specialized software. He'd bought it from a contact who dealt in security exploits, plugged it into the phone. The device worked for 90 seconds. Then the phone unlocked. He opened the photo gallery, scrolled through. His stomach turned. Photos of Sarah, dozens of them, taken without her knowledge, at work, at home, at her daughter's school, close-ups through windows, shots of her car, her mailbox, her routine documented in obsessive detail, text messages, sent from burner numbers, hundreds of them, each one more threatening than the last when she didn't respond, promises of what he'd do to her career, to her children if she didn't give him what he wanted, voice memos, Brennan talking to himself, fantasizing, planning, describing in graphic detail what he intended to do once he broke her resistance. Evidence, damning, undeniable, the kind that even expensive lawyers couldn't explain away. Garrett copied everything. The photos, the texts, the voice memos, all of it. Then he deleted the security exploits footprint, locked the phone, put it back. He was turning to leave when Brennan stirred, rolled over, mumbled something in his sleep. Garrett froze, completely still, not breathing, just a shadow in the darkness. Brennan's hand reached out, patted the nightstand, found the phone, pulled it close, then settled back into sleep. Garrett waited, 30 seconds, a minute, making sure. Then he moved, out of the bedroom, through the lodge, back to the study window, outside into the cold. He was 100 yards away when he heard it. A door opening, voices. The security guards were awake, doing a patrol, standard procedure. They'd check the perimeter, check the cameras, but they wouldn't find anything. Garrett had been careful, left no trace. The window was closed. The alarm hadn't triggered. On the security footage, there'd be nothing but shadows and snow. By the time they finished their patrol, Garrett was back on his snowmobile, miles away. The hard drive, with its devastating evidence, secure in his pack. He returned to the cabin as dawn broke. The sky was turning from black to deep blue. Kodiak greeted him at the door, tail wagging, sensing success. Garrett plugged the hard drive into his laptop, started reviewing what he'd found. It was worse than he'd imagined. Brennan wasn't just a stalker. He was a predator with a system. Each USB contained evidence of a different woman. Photos, videos. Some of them showed the women had no idea they were being recorded. The one labeled with Sarah's name was the most recent but also the most extensive. Brennan had been documenting her for months. Every movement, every routine, planning his approach, waiting for the right opportunity. The sabotaged fuel line wasn't impulsive. It was calculated, premeditated. He'd known about her trip to Fairbanks, known the route she'd take, known where she'd break down, prepared the lodge as his stage for playing hero. It was all there, a complete record of his obsession. Garrett made copies, multiple copies. Then he encrypted the files and sent them to 5 different locations. His own cloud storage, a trusted contact from his military days, a lawyer he'd worked with on his land purchase, a journalist he'd met years ago who specialized in investigative work, and Cooper, the ranger. Each message was simple. If something happens to me, release these files. No exceptions. Then he made a phone call. Brennan. The voice was groggy, annoyed at being woken up. It was barely 7 in the morning. This is Stone. Silence. Then, how did you get this number? Same way I got into your lodge last night. Same way I got into your bedroom. Same way I copied every file on those USB drives and every photo and message on your phone. More silence. Longer this time. Garrett could almost hear the man's mind racing, trying to figure out if this was a bluff. You're lying. Third drawer of your desk. Metal lockbox. 6 USB drives, each one labeled with a woman's name. Sarah, Jessica, Amanda, Catherine, Michelle, Rebecca. Should I describe what's on each one? Or maybe I should describe the voice memos where you talk about breaking Sarah's resistance. Brennan's breathing changed. Got faster. Panicky. You broke into my home. That's illegal. Anything you took is inadmissible. I didn't take anything. I copied it. And I'm not a cop, so I don't care about admissibility. I care about the court of public opinion. I care about every news outlet in Alaska seeing exactly what kind of man you are. My lawyers won't help you, because I didn't just copy the files. I distributed them. 5 different people now have everything. If anything happens to me, if anything happens to Sarah or her daughters, if you so much as drive past her house, those files go public. Every photo, every message, every sick fantasy you recorded. This is extortion. No. This is consequences. Something you've avoided your entire life. But not anymore. I'll destroy you. I'll use every resource I have. I'll make sure you never. You'll do nothing. Garrett cut him off. His voice was cold, final. Because the moment you move against me, the moment you hire a lawyer, or file a complaint, or send your security goons in my direction, everything goes live. And your career, your reputation, your entire life ends permanently. You can't do this. I already did. Here's what happens now. You stay away from Sarah Chen. You stay away from her daughters. You don't call. You don't text. You don't drive by. You don't send flowers or gifts or messages through friends. You disappear from her life completely and permanently. And if I don't, then the world finds out who Marcus Brennan really is. And you spend the rest of your life registered as a sex offender trying to avoid prison time for stalking and harassment across multiple victims. Your choice. Garrett ended the call. He powered down the phone, removed the battery. He'd buy a new one. This one had served its purpose. He looked at Kodiak. The dog was watching him. No judgment in those eyes. Just loyalty. Just trust. It's done, Garrett said quietly. 3 days later, Sarah Chen was released from the hospital. Her sister Linda picked her up, brought her back to her house where Emma and Lily were waiting. The reunion was everything you'd hoped for. Tears. Laughter. Relief so profound it was almost physical. That evening, Sarah's doorbell rang. She answered it cautiously. PTSD from her ordeal, making every unexpected sound a potential threat. It was Cooper, the ranger. He was holding an envelope. "This is for you," he said. "From Stone. He asked me to deliver it." Sarah opened the envelope. Inside was a letter and a USB drive. The letter was simple, handwritten, brief. "Sarah, you're safe. He won't bother you again. I've made sure of it. The drive contains copies of evidence that will protect you if he breaks his promise. Give it to your lawyer. Keep it somewhere secure. You don't need to run. You don't need to hide. You're free. Take care of those girls. They're remarkable. You raised them right. G.S. Sarah read it twice. Then she looked at Cooper. "Where is he?" "Don't know. He left the area yesterday. Didn't say where he was going. But he's coming back." Cooper shrugged. "With Stone, you never know. He's a ghost when he wants to be." Sarah held the letter against her chest. "I didn't even get to thank him. I think he knows." 2 weeks passed. Then a month. Sarah returned to work. The hospital welcomed her back. No one mentioned Marcus Brennan. It was as if he'd never existed, because in a way, he hadn't. At least not in Sarah's life. She later learned through the nursing staff gossip that Brennan had suddenly transferred to his company's Dubai office, permanent relocation, left Alaska without a forwarding address. The USB drive she gave to a lawyer revealed why. The evidence was overwhelming. The lawyer contacted the other women, the ones from the previous complaints. With the new evidence, 3 of them agreed to file a civil suit, not criminal. That would have been harder to prove. But civil cases had a lower burden of proof. Brennan settled out of court, paid each woman a sum that was never publicly disclosed but was reportedly substantial. As part of the settlement, he agreed to never return to Alaska, to never contact any of them, to seek professional help. It wasn't prison, but it was justice, of a sort. 3 months after the blizzard, Sarah received a package. No return address, just her name and address written in careful block letters. Inside was a framed photograph. It showed Emma and Lily sitting on a porch, a cabin in the background, mountains rising behind. Both girls were smiling, and between them, looking directly at the camera with intelligent eyes, was Kodiak. On the back, someone had written, "They're fighters, like their mother." Sarah hung the photo in her living room, right above the fireplace where she could see it every day. A reminder that even in the darkest moments, even when the system fails, sometimes help comes from unexpected places. Sometimes a hero looks like a hermit in the woods, with a dog and a set of skills most people never knew existed. Emma asked about Garrett constantly. When would they see him again? Could they visit? Could they write him a letter? Sarah always gave the same answer. He's out there, and if we ever need him, he'll find us. 6 months later, Sarah was hiking with the girls on a trail near their home. It was a warm summer day, the kind that made the horror of that February blizzard feel like a distant dream. They stopped for lunch at a scenic overlook, unpacked sandwiches, passed around water bottles. Emma was pointing out cloud shapes when Lily suddenly squealed. "Kodiak!" Sarah's heart jumped. She spun around. Coming up the trail was a massive German shepherd, sable and black coat shining in the sun, moving with the easy confidence of a working dog in his prime. And behind him, moving just as easily, was Garrett Stone. He looked different, lighter somehow, like maybe the isolation had been breaking rather than healing him, and coming down from the mountain had let something mend. The girls ran to Kodiak. The dog accepted their enthusiasm with patient dignity. His tail wagged slowly as they hugged him and buried their faces in his fur. Sarah walked over to Garrett. They stood a few feet apart. Not quite strangers, but not quite friends. Something in between that didn't have a name yet. "You disappeared," she said. "Had to. Needed to make sure Brennan stayed gone. Needed to make sure there weren't any surprises. And are there?" "No, he's in Dubai. Staying there. I have someone keeping an eye on him. If he so much as books a flight to the US, I'll know." Sarah nodded slowly. "Cooper told me what you did. Breaking into the lodge. Getting the evidence. Cooper talks too much. He said you risked everything. That if you'd been caught, you could have gone to prison." Garrett shrugged. "Some things are worth the risk." They watched the girls playing with Kodiak. Emma was trying to teach him to high-five. The dog was humoring her, lifting his paw and letting her tap it. Lily was braiding wildflowers into his collar. "Why did you really do it?" Sarah asked quietly. "You didn't know us, didn't owe us anything." Garrett was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I spent 15 years in the military. Saw a lot of things, did a lot of things. Some of them I'm proud of, some of them I'm not. When I got out, I thought the answer was to just walk away, to find some quiet place and forget. But finding your girls in that blizzard reminded me that you can't forget. You can't hide from who you are. And if you have the ability to help, the training to make a difference, maybe you have the responsibility to do it." Sarah felt tears building. "You saved our lives. Your girls saved themselves. I just gave them a warm place to finish the job. You raised fighters, Sarah. That's all you." "Thank you," she said, and the words felt inadequate, insufficient, but they were all she had. Garrett nodded. Then he looked at her directly. How are you doing? Really? Better. Some days are hard. I still jump when the phone rings, still check the locks 3 times before bed. But I'm working with a therapist. The girls are in counseling. We're getting through it. Good. That's good. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the girls, watching the dog, watching the sun paint the valley in shades of gold. Are you staying in the area? Sarah asked. Or disappearing again? Garrett smiled. Just slightly. Bought a place about 30 miles from here, smaller than the Brooks Range cabin, closer to town. Thinking maybe I need to be closer to people. Even if I don't always know what to do with them. The girls would love to visit sometime. If that's okay. Yeah, that'd be okay. And maybe I could make you dinner. As a thank you. Nothing fancy. Just spaghetti or something. Garrett looked at her. Saw the offer for what it was. Not romance. Not yet. But maybe the beginning of something. A door being opened. An invitation to step back into the world. I'd like that, he said. They exchanged numbers. Made plans. Nothing specific. Just the agreement that this wouldn't be the last time they saw each other. As the sun began to set, Garrett called Kodiak. The dog reluctantly left the girls. They hugged him goodbye, made him promise to come back, as if the dog could understand. But maybe he could. Maybe he understood more than any of them gave him credit for. Garrett and Kodiak headed back down the trail. Sarah and the girls watched them go. 2 figures, 1 human, 1 canine, moving together with the synchronized ease of a team that had been through hell and come out the other side. Emma waved until they disappeared around a bend. Then she looked up at her mother. He's like a superhero, right, Mom? Sarah smiled. Yeah, baby, he kind of is. Do you think we'll see him again? I know we will. And she did know. Because men like Garrett Stone didn't save people and then disappear forever. They saved people and then quietly, almost invisibly, kept watching, kept protecting, kept being the heroes the world needed even if the world didn't always recognize them. That night, back in his new cabin, Garrett sat on the porch, Kodiak at his feet, a cup of coffee in his hand, the stars bright and clear overhead. His satellite phone buzzed. A text from Cooper. Heard you were back in the area. Coffee sometime? Garrett smiled and typed back. Yeah, coffee sounds good. Another text. This one from the journalist he'd sent Brennan's files to. The civil suit settled. All 4 women are safe. Brennan's finished in Alaska. You did good, Stone. He didn't reply to that one. Just read it and let the words settle. Then a third text. From a number he didn't recognize. But he knew who it was. Thank you for today. The girls haven't stopped talking about Kodiak. Or you. Dinner next Saturday? 6 o'clock? Sarah. Garrett looked at the message for a long time. His thumb hovered over the keyboard. He thought about the last 3 years, the isolation, the silence, the belief that he was done with the world and the world was done with him. But maybe he'd been wrong. Maybe there was still purpose out here, still missions worth taking, still people worth protecting, still a life worth living that didn't involve running from the past but learning to carry it differently. He typed, Saturday works. Should I bring anything? The response came quickly. Just yourself. And Kodiak, the girls insist. See you then. He set the phone down. Looked at his dog. Looks like we're not done yet, boy. Kodiak's tail thumped once against the wooden porch. His eyes reflected the starlight. Steady, loyal, ready for whatever came next. Because that's what warriors did. They didn't stop fighting. They just found new battles, new reasons to get up in the morning, new people to protect. Garrett Stone had come to Alaska looking for silence, looking for an end to the noise. What he'd found instead was a beginning, a second chance, a reminder that heroes don't retire. They just change their missions, and sometimes, if they're very lucky, they find that the greatest mission of all is learning how to live again, how to trust again, how to let people in, how to save not just others, but themselves. If this story touched your heart, If you believe in second chances and unexpected heroes, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Leave a comment below telling us which moment moved you most. Was it Garrett finding the girls? Was it his confrontation with Brennan? Or was it that final scene on the hiking trail? Subscribe to our channel for more stories about courage, redemption, and the incredible bonds between people and the animals who protect them. And if you believe that sometimes justice comes from the most unexpected places, type Amen in the comments below. Thank you for listening. And remember, in your darkest moment, help might be closer than you think.